So it's not that I don't like talking about myself, and that's actually far from the truth. I don't like picking movies that I like, and I think I'm not the only one who suffers from that problem. I don't know if you suffer from that problem, Mark Begley,
No,
because you on your show, that's like all you fucking
no.
do. So
That's what I want to do. I don't want to talk. I'm getting tired of talking about movies I don't like, actually.
Oh wow, Mike White has joined the call. How dare you? I mean, but I
So the
get it
Chevy
though.
Chase podcast will be ending soon.
Wow. Jesus Christ. Hey man, I thought you were having a good time on that one. But I am not of that same mindset, for whatever reason. I rarely am the one picking the movies we watch, and at least on the show recently, and even more so than that, I rarely pick movies that I like, let alone love. I mean, there are few and far between movies that I've covered on this show that are some of my quote favorite movies. I mean, I've covered them on other things, like we did the episode on Fletch on the Chevy Chase podcast. Speaking of the Chevy Chase podcast, nice plug, Begley, without mentioning it. But I rarely pick movies to watch of my own volition because I find it hard to be impartial, because holy shit, I mean, the movies this month for the most part are movies that I really like or resonate with or want to share because of a reason that I'll explain when we get to those episodes. But this is a movie that I wanted to watch with you because, to your point, you are one of the few people that I know who does not do that thing that I do, which is, like you said, pick things that you necessarily don't know or haven't seen or roll the dice on. You just want to watch things you want to watch, which I get. Which is why I felt comfortable asking you to watch this with me, because I knew you liked this movie. So this wasn't going to be some sort of like Sisyphean task. Hey, motherfucker, let's push the boulder up the hill together with a movie that you don't like. So,
Yeah, and I probably wouldn't have accepted in the first place. I think I'm setting those boundaries with certain things these days. So that's one of them.
That's fair.
Especially if a movie is 3 fucking hours long, I'm not going to sit through.
That's fair. That's fair. And again, like, you know, that's the other thing. I didn't require you to watch the director's cut. You didn't have to if you didn't want to.
I did, though.
I mean, I'm glad you did. But to be fair, I think either cut of this movie is perfectly fine. I think you would probably agree because you've seen both.
Yeah.
I think one does different things than the other one. I know Ari Aster has said they're both perfectly fine. One is a more fuller picture of the story. I think there's gonna be plenty to talk about with this movie, whether or not you want to watch the director's cut or the theatrical cut, I think is my point.
It's maybe a fuller picture of their relationship, Christian and Danny's relationship. I don't know that it adds all that much else.
No.
There's one missing piece that you kind of get at the end of the movie as to why somebody looks the way that they do when they're being toted around in a wheelbarrow. But other than that, the longest, really the only completely deleted scene, really is just a deeper look into Christian and Danny's relationship. Their argument, their discussion at that point gives you not necessarily new information, just I think a little bit deeper into their 4-year-long relationship.
So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, if you are listening to this episode of the Kulturecast, I am still your host, Chris Stachiw, much to the chagrin of at least 2 people out there. I know for a fucking fact. And I am joined by speaking of Midsommar, and I'm joined by my good friend from the aforementioned Cambridge and with Sean. And I guess we didn't mention that, but yeah, you're on Cambridge and with Sean, which is one of your shows, and then Wake Up Heavy, which is your other show. My good friend, I guess, the man who we'll be seeing less of, but his commentary is no less prescient, Mark Begley.
I think I ate one of her pubic hairs.
God damn it. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, on this episode of the Kulturecast, I am taking a month for myself to program movies this year that I want to talk about. And the first one is Midsommar. I will not be saying what the rest of them are. I will just be letting the month play out and mentioning them at the end of every episode, as opposed to saying what it is up front like we did with Mike White March with Patch Adams, which was recent. Jeez. That was like the last thing man, you're on two back-to-back episodes, Mark Begley. Holy shit.
That's one of the reasons I'm not taking requests for bad movies anymore.
What, because of Patch Adams?
No, I didn't mind that movie that much.
I was going to say, you enjoyed it more than I did. I'm not even sure that's, if people listened to the last episode, they would know that was a lie. A bold-faced one even. But I know.
I'm never watching it again. So.
Yeah, fair. I, however, and I think you would agree, cannot say the same of this movie. I have seen this movie a fair amount, as I'm sure you have at least seen it once, clearly. On this episode of the Kulturecast, we will be talking about 2019's Ari Aster's sophomore film, Midsommar.
What time is it?
9 p.m.
That can't be right. The sky is blue.
This is what 9 p.m. is like here.
Welcome and happy Midsummer.
Unbelievable.
Let our feast commence.
It's like they're trying to make it gross.
What are they playing?
Skin the Fool.
Skin the Fool.
So we're just gonna ignore the bed?
It's a bear.
Dude, of all the things to let me sleep through.
That sounds fun.
So the film is written and directed by Ari Aster, and it stars Florence Pugh as Danny, a woman whose life
going
is
through
turned
some
up.
shit.
Yeah, boy, she's going through some shit. Her life is turned upside down by a series of traumatic events that lead her into the arms of a Swedish death cult. I don't want to ruin the movie, primarily because I think you should go watch the goddamn thing. To Mark Begley's point,
Spoilers ahead.
Yeah, we're going to spoil the movie.
6 years old now.
That's true. That's true. But
amazingly enough.
10 years is the limit. Anything within 10 years, I try not to spoil.
Fuck that.
Hey, man, this is my show.
You got the wrong guy on here then.
But to be fair, I think I think you should go watch it. I think it's a movie worth checking out. I think it's a movie worth watching non-spoilery stuff.
Yeah, well, use the Mike White text. Then if you haven't watched it, turn this off and go watch it. But
exactly. I mean, that's my point.
Talking about the ending of the movie because otherwise,
yeah. Oh yeah, no, we're talking about the whole movie. Yeah, but I think again, if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it because we are going to spoil this movie completely, obviously. But I think it's worth watching, and I think it's worth watching without researching it ahead of time or knowing where the plot goes because it benefits from the pace that Ari Aster is setting with the movie, which he does with most of his movies. So, Mark, I'm going to turn the floor over to you first. Thoughts on Midsommar? When did you see it for the first time? All the good usual questions that you're used to with the show. When did you see it? Thoughts then, thoughts now?
I saw it when it came out in the theater. So this was pre-pandemic, just I think about not a full year. I think it came out in the summer of 2019.
July 3rd.
And so I was still working in the office where I work, and I would occasionally cut out early. There is a movie theater fairly close to where I work, and it's not a very busy theater, and they had regular early showings. So they would have 10 o'clock showings at this place. And I'm like, oh, this is fucking great. I can go there and then I can go home and finish my work stuff. And so I had seen Hereditary in the theater as well because that got so much hype when it, played the festivals. And then when it eventually came out, I went and saw it and enjoyed it a lot. And so I was really looking forward to this one because I am a fan of folk horror, and it was obviously leaning in that direction. And I thought, oh, this is, we don't get a ton of folk horror now. It was a big thing in the 70s and maybe you could say even the 80s, 60s and 70s especially, and I like a lot of those. And I was also intrigued by the fact that it was going to be a daylight horror movie. So almost all of it, except for that aforementioned extended scene, takes place in the daylight because of where they are. It's almost all day there. That time of year, the sun only sets for maybe a couple hours, late at night. So that's always intriguing to me too, how that plays out of bright sunlight, kind of a empty space, the area where they are, this village, very few buildings, mostly wide open space. I mean, they're in kind of a little valley, but not many places to hide, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. So that all intrigued. Yeah,
Yes.
That intrigued me, and liking Hereditary as much as I did, and thinking, okay, this guy's onto something here. I gonna take a little tangent here real quickly. I don't think Ari Aster is any kind of genius or anything. I think that Hereditary maybe got a little overhyped, and it's a fun movie, but there's some stuff about it that always sort of bugs me when I watch it. And yet I think some of that is also intentional. So I sort of go into his stuff now with, okay, maybe it's going to be heavy handed, or maybe it's going to be really spelled out, but I think in part that's intentional. I don't know.
The director's cut of this movie, I think, more or less gives up the ghost of what the intent of the framing, almost the tone and color palette of this movie is literally a fucking fairy tale, right? Like that's what it feels like to me. And Hereditary has that same like weird storybook quality to it. Like that movie's more the doll. I mean, it's about the juxtaposition of the dollhouse and the house. Like that's the whole thing with that. But this movie doesn't have that so much. But Hereditary does kind of. This movie and that movie, they traffic in that weird. It's like hyper reality, right? It's hyper. It's super stylized.
Well, and it's kind of on the nose in spots too. I think a lot of the stuff is in both of those films. I haven't finished Beau is Afraid yet. We can talk about that later, but I think the on the nose stuff is sort of what bothers some people. Kind of bothers me, but then I think, I get that this is intentional as well. But for this one, like a lot of the things that happen are telegrammed. If you're just paying barely enough attention. I mean, my daughter catches, she's better at catching stuff anyway, but the second time I watched this movie was with her, and that was a couple of years ago. We talked about it a little bit. If anybody wants to hear us talk about it, that was the August 2023 episode of Wake Up Heavy called Return of the Living Kid. So we talk about it briefly, but she is a lot better at picking up on things like not the murals, but the tapestries, the murals. I mean, there are some murals, especially in that sort of dorm room that they are staying in. And if you look at the pictures that are in this shit happens in the movie. So it's not like any big...
The characters are a bit dumb sometimes. Hey, why is your drink a little darker than the other ones? Why is no one recognizing this but the people watching the movie?
That's the fun part for me is it's so spelled out everywhere they go, right? And they even kind of joke about
it's a fairy tale. That's what I mean. Like it feels like there's a level of inevitability to it, right? Like you said, the foreshadowing, right? Like the inevitability of the scenario.
Yeah, but they also, the characters themselves, the idiot Americans, even joke about it at times. Or what's the one character's name who's doing his thesis? I always forget their names.
Oh, Josh. William Jackson Harper, yeah. He
supposedly knows what that ritual is, and Pele, basically slashes his finger across his throat. So when it happens, it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, yet it still is, because it's, these Americans who had never witnessed anything like that before, and they're shocked. And the
Brits as well.
The British people. But it just kind of makes me laugh how it's all spelled out, and I don't know if it's not a stab at audiences, but it's right here. This shouldn't be a surprise. This love ritual that I'm not going to get any of these names right. The girl Maya.
Yeah.
Seeing it spelled and then hearing it, I get that's what confuses me, because they're pronouncing it differently than how it's spelled on screen. But when she does that, it's like, duh. I think the fun part about it is that the stuff works. The love spell works. All this stuff works, and is what they're doing real? I mean, does it do what everything that they think that they're doing? Does it work? I mean, kind of.
Does burning the Wicker Man bring the crops back?
I don't know. Does the May Queen blessing the crops
I don't know. I mean, and that, again, I think to your point, like the obviousness of what he's doing with what Ari Aster is doing is really something that I think, to go back to your digression about Hereditary, I did not like Hereditary the first time I watched it. I actually, with what you were talking about, I went into it with the previous co-host of this show having told me it was like the scariest movie he'd ever seen, and I was like, okay, I was like, fucking all right. I mean, I came to it much later and enjoyed it much later after the fact. That's recent, but that's only after I watched Midsommar last year for the first time. Like I would say probably around this time last year was the first time I had even seen Midsommar. I had not gone out of my way to watch it because I really didn't resonate with Hereditary. To your point, I found Hereditary to be very overrated when I watched it the first time. And I will say, I think in subsequent rewatches, I enjoy Hereditary an immense amount, but I think that a lot of that, and this is not a bad thing, and I'm not saying that like you can't enjoy something because of one specific thing. I think that there are plenty of things where one specific thing is good enough in the movie to watch it, but my God, Toni Collette's performance in that movie is amazing. She's phenomenal in that film. And it's a film about mental health. And so is Midsommar. And, Hereditary is about, I mean, again, the idea of inherited mental health as it being a hereditary thing. And in this movie, there is a little bit of that in this movie. But this is more about how mental health and grief kind of intertwine one another into this kind of nasty combination that causes a woman who is seemingly rational to, by the end of the movie, kill her boyfriend, who, again, this is not something I'm saying because I think you disagree, but I think as there are people who watch this movie and don't and miss the fucking point, this is not a yes girl movie at the end. The end of this movie is immensely sad. Like, the movie ends with a woman who is like fucking on Ativan, which I was on last year, and it is a hardcore mental health drug being taken advantage of by a cult who convince her that it is a good idea to murder her boyfriend. And they don't really convince her. I mean, they do, but they don't, but they do. I mean, the machinations are there, but he is a piece of shit. Nobody's going to argue that he's not. I mean, he is a terrible... to your point, he's overwritten, especially in the director's cut. It's like, this guy is... Almost the entire director's cut is, like you said, just expanding on their relationship and really coloring his character even more negatively and making him seem like that much more of a dickhead. But I'm not sure that him being more of a dickhead really hurts the overall ending of the movie in terms of how she gets there, because I don't think that him being an asshole to her is all of what pushes her to join the cult, because there's so many other things that take place in the movie. But again, obviously, given the fact that the movie ends with the moment of looking into her eyes, you watch her face in this like expression of like agony, but like joy at the same time. And then the credits are over. I'm not sure that there aren't people that think the ending is like an uplifting moment of like, she got one over on her cheater boyfriend. Well, it's like, it's not that, but it is, but it isn't, but it is. Like,
but people saw it as both, though. I can tell you very clearly because I was on Twitter at this time, and it was, did Christian deserve it? And there was a very clear delineation between yes and no with people. And
like, how can we even argue this?
And the director's cut was made available pretty quickly after the film came out. So some people were arguing based on which one they had seen, like you're kind of doing here. The director's cut makes him look worse. So does that still, though, justify what happens to him? Hey, look, I know she sort of has the final say in this. She gives the nod to go through with this.
Right.
She could have swapped him out, apparently, with somebody else. But
That's what
Why?
beggars the question. It also beggars the question: would they actually do that?
Right.
would they,
So,
or would they just be
does
like,
she
"Are
get-
you fucking with us?" Like it's him either way. Like, no, you don't get a choice. Like,
Yeah, I
choice.
mean, I think well, are they honest? I mean,
No.
they trick all these people. They trick all these people to come there, but are they honest in general about what's going on? They may obfuscate some stuff or not be. That when they walk through the little sunshine butthole thing into the compound, they don't immediately say, "Hey, guess what? We're going to kill a couple old people here pretty quickly, and then dispatch of all of you in one way or another, so that we get some good crops here because that's our business. That's how we survive." They're not upfront with what's going on, but also when things happen, they kind of they explain what's going on to a certain extent. And then they're doomed from the beginning anyway, because that's why these kids brought them there. They brought these guests there as sacrifices. The British couple that the other guy, Ingmar, I think is his name, brings. They're bringing them to be sacrifices. So is it really ultimately Danny's fault that Christian dies at the end? I don't know. I could argue no, it's not. But
the moment she heard about the trip, that was it. I mean, but that was it. I mean, Pele had the machinations to get her there. It seems like the whole time.
Right. Yeah, I think that's another thing that people kind of went back and forth on. Like, it's pretty obvious he has a thing for her.
Yeah.
So,
like, dead obvious.
I think he's bringing her over there to because he knows that everybody else is going to end up gone, and I don't know if he sees something in her that he makes him actually think that she'll be the May Queen, or if it's just a matter of, maybe I can save her for me somehow. And the fact that she becomes the May Queen makes it perfect for him. I don't know. But, his whole speech about how does Christian make you feel? Does he make you feel comforted, like you're at home? If if you're not catching on by then, that even before the leave, he's like, "I'm very glad you're coming," and it's like, oh, okay.
He's a bit of a creep. He's a bit of a creep. I mean, he's a creep. Like, again, like you've said though, like he's a creep, but there's a level of weird genuineness to all of the actions taken by the Horga that is, again, hard to kind of reason away, because to your point, they don't say everything up front, like you said, but they do eventually say everything that they're doing. They eventually say, not just for the audience's benefit, but for Danny's benefit, exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
To get her to the point where it's like, and then make the decision between one of ours or your boyfriend. And they don't say your cheating, philandering, adulterous boyfriend. They just say your boyfriend. They there's that moment. And so, it's weird to me. And I want to digress here before I talk about the moment in the movie that I think is the moment for me where I'm like, similarly to Toni Collette in Hereditary, and again, I know you would probably agree, the Academy Awards and Oscars don't matter for anything at all. But Florence Pugh's ability to convey emotion through her face, just like Toni Collette, is, I mean, Ari Aster is able to get very nuanced performances out of fantastic actors, and they're fantastic actors, but he's like, the nuance of their performances comes from the script, but it also, I mean, again, like, he clearly works with them and talks with them a lot about what he wants from them and what they want to bring to it, because the moment where she walks over and sees him cheating on her, and he's raping a 15-year-old. I mean, ultimately, like, it's a sexual ritual, but she's fucking 15. They say it multiple times in the movie. Like, again, to your point, they're making it very clear a lot of how bad the things are is made upfront and honest. It's just, again, like, there's no pretense to it.
But he's
also drugged out of his mind.
He's drugged up. They've manipulated him into doing this. I don't know that I would. I honestly don't know that I would call that rape. I understand that she's 15, but they, for one thing, and this may, it's so
fucking wild.
This comes across as problematic, but she seduced him with a love potion.
Exactly.
Whether you want to believe the validity of that working or not.
The immense amount of gaslighting that is going on behind, and not really behind, but again, we see it, but we don't. We don't ever really see them having these conversations about the things they're going to do to these Americans that they've brought over. We just see it happening. We see these moments where there's questioning of, when the one British guy disappears, and then his girlfriend is like, wait, well, why would he leave? And Connie's like, why would he leave? Why would Simon leave? And they're like, well, they come up with the most bogus of stories. Oh, the truck only had 2 seats, and I could have sat on his lap. Well, we don't want to break traffic laws. So it plays out at times like a very dark comedy because and again, the first time you watch the movie, I would almost say like the first time, and at least the first time I watched the movie, I knew where it was headed. And it's like you've already alluded to, it more or less like, I almost don't know how you could watch this movie without knowing where it's going by the end of it, just based on, like you already alluded to, the conventions of the subgenre of folk horror. Like all these folk horror movies end with one of our main characters either having a decision made that affects them or making a decision that affects someone else. And it is often like one of the worst things you can do. The Kill List is one of them. The Wicker Man is another one. This is another one. Like, and again, like they're these. It's weird. Like there's a sacrifice that has to be made, and somebody's making the decision to make the sacrifice. And sometimes you're the one. Sometimes you're the sacrifice, and sometimes you're the sacrificer. And in this movie, we get to see both of the perspectives, but it ultimately, again, like there's that like yes girl like of conversation that I find so weird about the movie, because I really think that the movie makes it very clear how awful everything is. But I can also see where you would think, not you, but the broader, I guess, internet dialogue would be seeing it and saying like, well, if it's a fairy tale and we take, in Hansel and Gretel, there's an oven and we know that the witch is going to end up in that goddamn oven. While we don't know that Jack Rayner is going to end up in the bear, we know that that there is a bear that will somehow end up playing into the climax of this film because Ari Aster shows us a bear.
Right. He points everything out.
Yeah.
Very
there's
blatantly.
A bear. Yeah. There's a building that we're going to light on fire. Like, skin the fool. Like there's all these things that are just like, they say it up front.
Yeah. It's all right. Like I'm saying, if you're barely paying attention, you'll get it, but
it works.
Back to what I was saying.
Right.
Yeah. Well, back to what I was saying earlier before we got interrupted by solicitors. This is going to sound problematic as far as, the whole underage sex thing, but he is actually being manipulated by the cult. They all want him to do this. She wants him to do this. She wants to have a baby. That's the only reason he is there.
Right.
That's why Pele he again sets this up for her. Like she picked you out. She saw a picture of you and that's why I brought you here.
Right.
And you're going to give her a baby, and that's all you're here for.
And then you die, and then you're going to die one way or another. It just happens to be that Danny is like, all right, well, we can rope her into this and get her on our side completely. Like,
right.
Yeah.
But the yes girl thing, I don't really have a problem with it because it's a fucking movie, and it's like, if you want to take that viewpoint of he fucking deserved it and I'm glad he's dead. He's a horrible character. He doesn't kill anybody. He's not a murderer. He's not a whatever. I mean, if you want to call him a rapist, fine. But if nothing else, a cheater. But do cheaters deserve to die? No, of course not. Do horrible boyfriends deserve to die? Of course not. But that's not everything about Danny, though. I mean, we haven't talked about this instigating episode of the movie.
Right.
And I love the opening of the movie, that cold blue, dreadful looking winter scenery that opens the film. And it takes a few minutes to get to what happens. And her sister, who's obviously, we're talking about mental health and hereditary, that whole thing. She's obviously mentally ill.
Bipolar. They say
kills herself.
They say it, I believe. Yeah.
Kills herself. It's in something, something she's reading or something. I think.
No,
says.
he says it. He goes,
Yeah.
Jack Rayner goes, he goes, she's bipolar. She does this all the time. Is his,
Right. That's true. That's true.
His dismissive, his super duper cool dismissiveness.
That's my highlight for him, is dismissive boyfriend. That's my name for him. Takes herself out along with her parents in a very convoluted scenario, but and horribly, that image of her down the hall as it kind of pans into her with things strapped around, it's just a horrible image. Really gruesome stuff. I mean, it's not bloody or gory, or it just fucks with your head. How horrible.
And to your point, I sometimes share some of the horror movies, again, horror movies, genre fare. I sometimes share them with my folks because my mom is notoriously not a horror movie person. And we watched this the last time they came to visit. And my mom was like, is it a scary movie? Because I had taken him to see Alien Romulus, which is a scary movie. That movie has jump scares. That is a traditionally scary movie in a way. I'm not saying this doesn't traffic in that. There are a couple. There's one or two. But this movie is in a lot of ways not that. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's not that it's a scary movie and it's not that it's a gory movie. I think it's more just a completely unsettling movie. And at times, this movie almost, and I realized, I noticed it this time I was watching it, because of the way that the film at times, as the movie goes on, where I'm also convinced, by the way, that these fucking people have been drugged the whole time. They're being drugged the whole time, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're not even, again, they're not alluding to it. They're showing us that they're drugging them constantly. And it may be even in the food, but it's definitely in the drinks that they keep offering them. And they're offering them drugs outright. This movie's not gory, or there's a couple gory scenes, but I don't think this movie's overall gory. I think it's just overall unsettling. But at times this movie feels like it's alive. It's undulating in the background at times. You can see the background scenery undulating behind the characters. And that's more unsettling than any amount of a guy jumping off of a cliff and having his head smashed in. You could go watch Terrifier 3. That's, you know what I mean? If you want to see gore, there's a level of gore that you can go and see elsewhere. This movie is not trafficking in that. I think what this movie is trafficking in is much, much more, to your point and kind of what you've already mentioned, unsettling. I think this movie is thoroughly unsettling because, again, the movie is gaslighting the audience along with the character, because we find out when it's too late, just like Danny does, what is going on. And she should, in the moment at the end, when they're like, you want to sacrifice him or your boyfriend, she should go, let's get the fuck out of here and run. But obviously they can't. That's not the way the story plays out. That's not the inevitability.
Where are they going to run to, though?
Well, I mean, again, obviously there is that. I mean, the inevitability of it all, because again, once they walk through the sun butthole, as you so aptly put it, it is game over. I mean, the moment she loses cell phone signal, it's game over. I mean, it's really, she gets a text message from her friend saying have a happy birthday tomorrow. It's that's the last moment. That's the final moment of contact. And then from then on, she is gone. There are so many missing people across the world, and she is now just on a long list of missing people, essentially. Her family is dead, but she may have extended family. Clearly, there are people who care about her who are going to wonder where she went. They are essentially missing persons now, and who the fuck's ever going to find out where they went? I don't know. Nobody, probably.
They're in the middle. They are in the middle of nowhere. They take a very long drive to get where they're going.
Yep.
And none of them, any of them would know if she wasn't on her own. If one of the other people had survived, they would never find their way out of there.
No. There's too many of the Horga anyways. I mean, again, like you said, where are they going to go? And like you had mentioned, there's at the end of the film, Jack Rayner, after the sex ritual, he's running around, and we're kind of seeing some of the things that we've heard happen or have alluded to happening. Get to see some of it. And it's he can't get anywhere. They're just kind of watching him as he's running around. It's this is inevitable. They're just waiting. They are enjoying the process. And that's, again, that's why this movie is so unsettling, is these people are, in a lot of ways, reveling in this. They are reveling in gaslighting these people and murdering them and torturing them and turning them against one another. They're enjoying this. they're getting, I mean, I'm not saying that they're getting off on it sexually, but when you look at what they are doing in those scenes where they're like sharing the emotions of one another, they are technically getting off on it. Like, you know, when in the sex ritual, we have this, you know, kind of horseshoe of women all making noise in unison with
Right.
Maya. We have them then cry. We have the women then crying with Florence Pugh. And I think one of the more overwhelming scenes in the movie. It has no gore. There's no gore in that scene.
Yeah.
It's just overwhelmingly emotional in a way that that dinner scene in Hereditary is. It's like, Jesus Christ, I've never seen a more horrifying scene in a movie than that dinner scene in Hereditary, because that is eminently more relatable than most Exorcist or, you know, possession movies are. And there, I mean, again, for as much as the director's cut does kind of gild the lily in a way with their relationship and give us more of them being terrible towards one another, or him being terrible towards her, however you want to interpret it, I think the amount of I don't know. I just think the amount of them two together getting to see that is not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't think it's needed, because I think, to everybody's point, and even to your point in a way, like, it's made very clear that he's a dismissive boyfriend, and that almost should have been enough because of how bad what happens at the beginning of the movie is, and how fucked how genuinely fucked his reaction is to her family dying. Like, she is so vulnerable as a human being at the beginning of this movie that it takes someone essentially breathing on her for her to go into this arms of the cult. And she does. I mean, she goes willingly, because the other thing that we haven't really talked about, and we haven't said the word really, is the idea of the Horga being her family, replacing the family that she has lost. And that is a real big part of the gaslighting kind of narrative of the movie, is that they are kind of a family in embracing those emotions together, like, you know, sexually, or crying, or the breathing that they do, the kind of like rhythmic breathing, like all of it is this weird shared psychosis that by the end of the movie, Florence Pugh is at the center of it, and she's screaming and crying with the smoke in the background, and it's just...
Yeah. Well, that's what cults do, though. I mean, they don't have to separate her from her family. That's already been taken care of. But that's what cults do, is they slowly cut off all of your outside connections and make you feel like this is where you belong. These are the people who are going to take care of you. They're going to not only empathize with you, but like physically go through the same thing as you when it's happening. You know, not that any of those women are actually crying when she's crying, but that scene of them huddled around her, imitating her, basically, would be, I'm assuming, comforting. And, you know, I'm not so sure about 12 naked women standing around you when you're having sex. That probably wouldn't be, you know, I guess you'd get used to it after a while. And, you know, somebody helping your boyfriend by pushing his butt.
Right.
I'm sure they don't do that for every sex act, but, you know, I don't know. They're kind of weird. So, but I mean, they're a cult. It is a cult, and you can't, that's why I like the ambiguity of it. I don't really fucking care if Christian deserved it, because it's a movie and fuck that guy anyway. He's the first contact that they have in the movie, the phone call, he's dismissive. And that very passive aggressive trait of his throughout, well, I don't know if when the party, I guess, which is one of the extended scenes, which I've only seen it twice before seeing the director's cut. So a lot of the stuff I'm like, how does this get 20 minutes longer, you know, than the regular cut that I've seen? Because I'm you know, and I'm reading what the extended scenes are and stuff. I'm like, oh, I guess, I mean, that just seemed, I didn't notice that was new. Right. So at the party, you know, some part of that party that they all go to, that she kind of drags herself to, uninvited in a way, you know, is explicit in that relationship too, where she's finding out about the trip, and he's like, well, you know, I told you I wanted to go. And she's like, well, no, you told me that there was going to be a trip. Well, so he's like back and forth with, well, I implied that and I just decided today. And then, and I was going to invite you, but you ruined the surprise. And it's like, bullshit. You were not, you know, if she hadn't found out about that, you would have never told her, and then it would have been too late. And the whole time though, I'm thinking, dude, fucking nut up and just tell her, this is for my school stuff. This, and Josh and I are gonna do, this is why we're going. But he can't. That's why I hate that passive aggressive. Like, well, I invited her, but she's not gonna go. When he's talking to all his friends, and it's like, that's not how it works, dude. And then her similar passive aggressiveness, like, well, if it's okay with everybody, and who's gonna say no, it's not, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And be the dickhead. Like, I mean, they all want to. Nobody apparently likes her. And then you find out,
well, we don't know if they don't. We don't know if they don't like her, but we know that he bitches to them about her. I don't think Will Poulter likes her. I mean, pretty apparent. Yeah, but you know what I mean. Also, like the thing I appreciate about the Jack Rayner performance is whatever. He's also coloring their judgment on her because of the.
Well, yeah.
You're interrupting me while we're smoking weed. Like, bro, just don't even answer your fucking phone. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if it's such a fucking hassle for you to talk to your girlfriend, bro, just don't answer the phone and just be like, what do you need? And that's, like you said, with the passive aggressive, it's like, but they have him answer the phone and he acts like an asshole. And it's like, oh,
right.
He's just, and he's so perfectly a dickhead. Like,
yeah.
And so is Will Poulter, to your point.
Yeah. The other thing, though, that drives me crazy is her apologetic attitude, where it's like, girl, man, knock it off. I don't know. So you don't get the family dynamic because her family's dead, but you wonder, like, why? I just can't imagine being with somebody who is just forever apologizing about something. And I mean, this is obviously showing us what their relationship is like, but I'm thinking, man, in this day and age, to have a girl be so apologizing for what? For being yourself, for being traumatized by your family being killed in one fell swoop. What are you apologizing for? And then she apologizes for apologizing, and it's like, God damn. Why would you be with someone that you're constantly having to apologize to? Why would you want to be? I mean, that comes up when she's talking to her friend. Well, maybe I'm too needy. Well, why should I keep calling? Should I text? It's like, God, it shouldn't be that hard. A boyfriend-girlfriend relationship shouldn't be that hard. I'm sorry. It shouldn't be that much work. If it's that much work, just fucking forget it and move on. The both of you. If neither one of you has the balls to say this is stupid, it's frustrating.
Well, and I think Ari Aster. I like that Ari Aster minds that in the movie because it really. I mean, again, to your point, and I think it's almost like is Deckard a replicant question of this movie? Like does he deserve it or not? Like, to your point, like, I don't think it matters. The movie makes it very clear he deserves it. That's the foreshadowed, very obvious, like, telegraphed ending by like the imagery that we see, by the artwork in the hut. At one point we see a literal bear on fire at one point. Like, the movie is showing us its hand, but in the execution it's like one of those like boxes that is essentially finely milled to like 0.000 millimeters, where everything works together too well, that it's like, well, I do agree. And I would 100% agree with you that everything is hyper stylized. The characters are very clearly written in very broad strokes. Even to your point, Florence Pugh's character, she's not written as like the nagging girlfriend, but to your point, like, she's written as a very specific kind of girlfriend that Jack Rayner's character has to have a very specific kind of boyfriend for this formula to work. But again, it's a movie. It's written by Ari Aster. And so because it is a movie that is crafted by a human being, he makes these pieces work together really well, which is a kind of, again, not super shrewish girlfriend, but what she does works really well with how negative he is and how passive aggressive he is, that the two of them are really, I mean, in a lot of ways, I think that one of my, not a complaint of the movie, but almost a thing I would even say, like, you've kind of alluded to it, like, I find it almost unbelievable that they were actually ever together as a couple, because they seem so fucking miserable. Like,
well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like, I agree.
I completely. I agree with you. It shouldn't be that much work.
I would say that's almost a problem with the movie. As much as I like this movie, I have a hard time believing these two people don't like ever actually liked each other outside of the like we open and it's a fairy tale, and these are like Jack and Jill or Hansel and Gretel, like no characterization really. Like they're together and that's all we know about them, but their relationship does not seem real at all.
Obviously, people get involved for the wrong reasons and stay together for the wrong reasons and all this other shit. But for me in my brain, it doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense to constantly be that embroiled in negative feelings. Like a boyfriend girlfriend relationship, I don't care if it's been going on for 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, should not be that much work. Now, a marriage maybe, but even then it's like,
yeah. They don't know how to communicate either, which is the other thing. Like they can't communicate. Right. Yeah.
But she's always either apologizing or backtracking something that she said, or, apologizing for feeling a certain way about something that he said. And this is where that extended scene plays into it, I think, the most, and why maybe if you've watched that cut, you're more likely to say, yeah, he deserved it. But also, I don't know that but if it has to be that way though for the movie to work, where it's this relationship that nobody thinks should work. It's obviously the tail end of it, and he can't break up with her now because that would be such a dick move because her whole family is right. It's like that's a stupid reason.
The timing's
that's a stupid reason to stay with someone for one thing, but you shouldn't have been together that long. And when they say towards the end of the film that they've been together for 4 years, it's like, what? Why would you? Why? And I get that sometimes it's just having someone there that's the comfort for you, just particularly for her, I think, because he's got his friends. I mean, she has a friend, obviously, the girl that she talks to and that sends her that text, but she seems more isolated. And that's, I think, made clear in the early scenes of the film, where he is surrounded by his friends at all times, and she is the interloper. And she may be talking on the phone with her friend and trying to text her sister, but she's just sitting all alone in her apartment. And it seems like that's sort of normal for her. It's framed in such a way that she is the hanger on. She goes to the party that they've all been invited to. She goes on the trip that they were all planning to go on. And it's always this fifth wheel type scenario. And I don't know. I couldn't live my life that way.
Well, and to your, I mean, that's why I agree. Like the characterization of the Florence Pugh character, again, the way that she's characterized, I'm not sure. I love her performance, but her character is not. She's not the kind of person you'd want to be with. Like, she's the way that she acts and the way that she interacts with him. Like, it's very clear that she does not know how to communicate with him. He doesn't know how to communicate with her. And to your point, that may be even more than just her not being able to communicate with him. It might be her being able to communicate with anybody at all. And again, to your point, we never see her family dynamic. We know that her and her sister don't get along, but I mean, again, her sister killing their parents, we see her parents and her sister show up a couple times in the movie. Mm-hmm. They are at one point on the rock where the two old people die. And then at the end, when she's being congratulated as the May Queen, They walk through the audience.
They walk through.
Yeah. So they show up, but we never hear what they're saying. And there's that in that scene, that extended scene where they're talking about the flowers, and he's like, I don't like being in debt to you. And you wonder what it was like when with her family, because again, like, she did something nice for him, and his response is to like freak out at her, and she doesn't defend herself about it at all. She, like you said, backtracks completely and more or less takes responsibility for nothing. Like, being nice to him. Like, why are you apologizing for? What are you apologizing for? If you're not apologizing for anything for real, then stop fucking apologizing. And it's so much.
And in that scenario, I'm kind of like, was she doing that though? And maybe she was.
Again.
And I mean, and why not? You didn't remember her fucking birthday.
I mean, yeah, exactly. He's such a fucking dick. Like, and we've talked about Florence Pugh and Jack Rayner a lot. To mention dicks, like Will Poulter, an actor I love.
I love Will Poulter. Yeah, and he's great in this.
Yeah, but he's like, what they're having him do is play, I think, what one might say broadly European people think about, like, pig-headed Americans of a certain stripe. Like,
they're all ugly Americans, though. Honestly,
yeah,
they all are.
Yeah,
even Jaw. I mean, they're arrogant. They're
disrespectful of culture.
Yeah, and this is what they're studying, though, which is the funny part of it. And it doesn't matter. It's like, I want pictures of your sacred text, so I'm gonna fucking break in there and do it, for my thesis.
Right, even though their sacred text is complete horse shit, but whatever.
Well,
I love
the
joke. The joke, though, is that they're like, because they're gaslighting everybody. Like, somebody's gaslighting somebody else who keeps gaslighting somebody else, but like, it's not real. Like, it's literally like it's not. Like, that's what makes it.
But is it gaslighting, or is it just because Ruben can't actually write and he's just smudging paint on the thing?
I don't know. I mean,
think there's text underneath there. He's just not adding anything new.
That's true, but this is one of the 16 affects. Like, all right, like
it that makes me think of the whole idea of interpret. They're going to interpret what he smears on there, right? So
right. Again, it could be whatever.
This just reminds me. This is a total tangent, and I apologize to your listeners, but I grew up in a Christian home and went to a Christian private school, and so all of my friends went to different churches and stuff, and a couple of them went to Foursquare Church, which is Pentecostal. And I went to a Pentecostal summer camp with these kids one time. And so Pentecostals speak in tongues. Well, the whole point of speaking in tongues is you have to have someone there who can interpret it.
Right.
It's the same fucking thing.
Right.
Because it's gobbledygook. And I would just sit there and go, what in the hell are you people doing? This is ridiculous. And half the time, nobody would interpret it. So,
but that's my point. Like, at what point in this Horga society did everybody agree to be gaslit together? Because
that's what a cult does.
Right, the elders are gaslighting, but again, at 72, these people have to kill themselves.
Right.
So the elders are only in charge for a while, and then they're put out to pasture. Even so, like, to be an elder in the church, you're pre-72, I guess.
So you can do what the Mormons then and have a new revelation, and then you change that.
It's true.
You change that prophecy. Now it's okay to let African Americans into your church. Now it's okay to live past 72. Let's change the dates. Let's have it be 20, 20, 40, 60, 80. Give people a couple more years. Well, let's keep maybe we'll just not do the diving off the cliff thing. I got to tell you, that diving off the cliff thing is a little harder to watch nowadays for me after having fallen off a fucking ladder.
Yeah, I was
shattering my leg.
That's not a positive scene to watch, I can imagine.
Well, and that's like one of the worst possible ways I can think of taking yourself out. Because very obviously it's not 100% right, because dude misses the rock. And then you get your face smashed in by the giant mallet, and that takes forever for them to get over there and do it. It's like, hey, can we speed up with the mallet, please? I'm hurting over here.
Well, and again, like, there's that level of like embracing the shared suffering, because you have the characters, the Horga, making the noise, and it's like, what? Well,
right. And that's the appeal.
Right.
That's the appeal that, maybe an outsider or maybe the younger people, who are kind of going, somebody at some point's got to go, this seems kind of fucked up. I've been living here my whole life, but this seems odd.
Pele doesn't seem to think so.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you can also argue whatever you grow up with, this happens every year, or whenever somebody turns 72, you're not going to think anything of it. But a lot of those that are in that second phase, that summer, 18 to 36 or whatever, that's these guys. That's Pele and the people that bring the British kids and all that. So they're experiencing the outside world and know enough of it to know that this is unusual. But again, it's what you grew up with, and it's what you're led to believe is the appropriate way to do things. So
some of the themes of Hereditary are folded into this movie, because there is that. I mean, there is the level of, like, in Hereditary, the grandma is, I am doing all of this for you, and this has been a thing that I am doing, and, don't worry about it, but this is a thing set in stone for a long time. And this, I mean, again, to your point, Pele and all these people leave and come back willingly to die. What are you going to say to that? Well, I mean, again, like, They came back willingly. They were out in the world for how long and could have stayed away. And probably maybe some do. They don't say. Who knows? Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe some. I mean, again, they do let them leave. They let them leave. And these people come back willingly to jump off of a cliff.
So do the Amish, most of them, after their Rumspringa, and they've had a taste of the outside world. So
exactly.
So do Mormons on their mission. So do, I mean.
The tradition is overwhelming. There's a level of expectation and tradition that's baked into this like society. And again, like you said, it's not much of a digression with religion. Like, they are a religion. This is
right.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's a religious movie, but I mean, they are a religious cult. Cults have a religious aspect to them. They never really mention that they believe in a god, I guess, but they definitely
talk
it's
more
about
of a pagan.
They mentioned Ymir at one point, which is Norse. So
right, yeah, because they are a northern country,
in Sweden. And what a beautiful movie, by the way. To your point about all the daylight stuff, I know again we've some of the things we've glossed over, but this is a beautiful movie. I mean, because it is all in daylight. Like, it's not a scary movie; it's an unsettling movie, and I think a lot of that also comes from the fact that it's shot in daylight. Like, you don't see most of anything that happens in this movie. There's one scary moment where Josh is clubbed over the head and murdered by the guy wearing Will Poulter's fucking skin suit.
Well, the
Halloween homage with the tilting of the fucking head like Michael Myers. I mean,
the skin the fool thing. I think this is one of the things that Cleo sort of helped me with. I'm like, why does he look so weird? And she's like, well, because someone's wearing his skin, Dad. And I'm like, oh, right, skin the fool. I get it. And then I think in other scenes you can see his like leg skin and other parts of his skin on other people.
yeah.
But that makes me think of Connie. Because that is one of the things, sometimes in our discussions on other films, we talk, like the Chevy Chase stuff we've been talking about. I think in particular, Three Amigos, where stuff got kind of cut out, and you're like, well, this doesn't make sense anymore now that they cut that out. And with Connie, it's not that big of a deal, but it's like, oh, now I get why she's in that stuff.
Right.
To made up to look like a tree. You would just think it's part of another ritual thing. And she's obviously been in the water. Right. She's soaking wet and looks like she's been there for a while. She's starting to decompose. And so that completely deleted scene of the river, sacrifice that doesn't actually take place with the little kid. It's like, oh, okay, now I get why she looks that way, because they went through with it just with her instead of with the kid from the
right. And did you have you noticed in the movie the scenes where you hear her like dying? There's two scenes in the movie where Florence Pugh hears her and then Will Poulter hears her.
Yeah, it's like a Rashomon thing. It's like you hear the scream in this scene and then they kind of retrack a little bit.
Yep.
And then the next in the next scene, they're all taking place at the same time, but he shows them successively, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it.
And then Will Poulter has a really good line where he goes, "No, but I heard her trying out for the sprinting Olympics," which is essentially he's alluding to the fact that she's being chased down by them to be murdered. Like, and he's just, I mean, to go back to the original point, Will Poulter plays. Again, like you mentioned, they're all just pig-headed Americans, but his pig-headed American is my favorite one of the movie because he's a man after my own heart, hitting his fucking vape pen constantly, pissing on their tree by accident, just wanting some sniz the whole movie. He's just like, I want some tang, and that's what I'm here for. It's like, oh, this guy. We all know a guy like this guy.
Yeah.
And if we don't know this guy, you might be that guy of your friend group. But he's I'm not saying all the characters deserve it, but the British couple, the case is made for them deserving it because they're fucking obnoxious. Like, they are. Like, I mean, the movie makes it clear what it wants you to think about them as to why they deserve to die. It's a little less egregious than what the Americans do. They're essentially just like, they don't agree with what they're seeing, and so they're rather loud about it. Like, that's why they deserve to die, apparently. But the Americans, like, I think Will Poulter is the perfect pig-headed American of the pig-headed American group, because he's just, he says all the worst things constantly, always.
He is, in a film that I think is filled with black humor. He's the comic relief and just regular humor. But the idea that it bothers me. I get it. Not that I think he deserves any of it either, but how would you know? But it's like, well, then just fucking apologize. Don't do that. Like, I didn't know. It's just a fucking tree. Like,
right.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
He had to be that guy, though. That's the point. Like, the movie, again, broad strokes, right? Like,
I just always hate that scene because I'm like, I would be mortified. I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I did that. Oh, what can I do? Well, just to rip your skin off.
But it plays out in the worst way. It's like playing, Fallout or Baldur's Gate and picking the worst option, like antagonize. Like, oh, I don't know. What do we do when we do? How do you guys jerk off? Like, what the fuck, dude? Shut the fuck up. Like, nobody needs to hear what you have to fucking say, asshole. And he's just like, says hey, what are the Swedish women so fucking hot? Like, oh my God, this guy, this fucking guy. Like, you can't take him anywhere. And then there's that scene of Florence Pugh in the car and she keeps falling asleep and waking up. And some of it is him talking. It's just like, Jesus Christ. Like, this fucking guy.
Well, I love the fact, and again, this is only the third time I watched it. So knowing what happens to people ahead of time makes me think about the scenes prior. So that happens, and that one guy, Ulf, I think, is really, really mad about it and really dislikes him. And he's like, man, that dude is still staring at me. You think he's gonna do something? And then the next scene, I don't know if it's that guy's daughter or what, that he's been checking out the whole time. He's like, hey, come with me. I'll show you. She's like, oh, she's gonna show me. And then that's it. He's dead.
Yeah.
And
she
I
shows
love
back
that
up with like bruises on her face. So there was maybe like a struggle or something. Like maybe
that part.
She has like bruises on her face at the end of the movie.
Oh, that's right. No, I did catch that.
So maybe again, like she catfishes him away so that she could get him killed. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she takes him to his death, basically. Yeah. And it's just funny how I realize, it happened in just like boom, boom, boom. That guy's still staring at me. And then she comes over, says, I'll show you. And he's like, hey, she's going to show me. Yeah. She's going to show you how they peel your skin off.
And don't you love how terrible his friends are that they don't even realize that he's gone?
Yeah.
They don't even realize. They're like, where's Mark? And it's like, oh, he's been gone for like, again. And the other thing that's unsettling about the movie, because there's very little daytime or night time, we don't know how long time passing is in any of this. Like, I don't have like you said, like Connie's been dead for a while. Has she? I mean, she looks waterlogged, but I couldn't fucking tell you how long any of this movie takes because of the lack of nighttime. It's like this movie in a lot of ways, it's like being in a casino. Like they're deprived. Ari Aster, again, like you've already alluded to, is doing things intentionally to deprive you of things that in every other movie you watch allow you to have like markers in time of things happening. Like in horror movies, when it's daytime, normally you feel safe, like as a watcher of the movie. And in this movie, there is no nighttime. There's only daytime, and daytime is when everything happens. Like there's nothing bad happens at night other than the instigating incident at the beginning of the movie. But
once you get there, it's almost always daylight. Just the only other scene really that takes place in the dark of night is when Josh sneaks out to go take pictures of their sacred text.
Right.
And that's really it. And I think that's why that extended scene is a little bit disorienting too, because it's like, oh, this is a fairly long scene
at night
in the dark. And so I don't know that's why they took it out, but I think it's also, do we really need to show this again? We've already had it comes right after the old people jump off the mountain, and maybe like, well, this is too much. This would come across as too much to these Americans. Like they probably would really try to get the fuck out of there.
Right. If they see a child being thrown into the river now. I mean, Florence Pugh's line, right? What's happening now? which is a great line delivery. What's happening now? Cut to them throwing a child in the river. Like,
right. Yeah. Which they don't do. They do Connie instead. But I mean, I understand there's multiple reasons for taking it out, but it almost feels to me like, well, this kind of doesn't fit because it's the only extended scene at night. It's sort of repetitive because we just had this sacrifice, and other than their long discussion, which reinforces their relationship, but do we really need that as well? Like, we get it. We get that he's the dickhead gaslighting boyfriend and that she's the apologetic, like overly apologetic girlfriend. We already have that established. We don't really need their full dialogue.
I guess my question to you would be, does that move the inflection point of the movie? Because in my mind, that's the inflection point of the director's cut, is that scene at night between the two of them. Because that's the moment, if you watch, if again, like, and this is the thing about, and this was the digression that I never made, but this movie, it's ironic to me that I watched this movie the year I ended up getting divorced from my partner of 13 years, which is something that I've had to come to terms with. And that's part of what this movie is about, is coming to terms with grief and loss. And I struggle with it still on a daily basis. And I would never in a million years join a cult to try and make things better, which is what she does. She goes, I don't have a family anymore. I have no found family even. So I am okay with making the decision to turn my decision making over to these people entirely and soon to be part of the mass that is them. You know, that's not something I want to engage in. But Midsommar, if you watch the movie as a relationship, as a look at relationships, the inflection point for their relationship where it is the point of no return, as far as I'm concerned, the cheating and whatever is kind of belabors the fucking point. I think she makes the decision to put him in the bear if given the opportunity, when he walks out on her and leaves her in the middle of that field standing there. Yeah. And that scene is different in the theatrical cut versus the director's cut.
Yeah. Well, so it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist at all in the
right.
They don't have, because it would be, how would you cut into that? Right. And I'm pretty sure it's not in there at all. I don't think that night scene is in there at all.
The night scene is not in there at all. So my question to you then is, the inflection point, is there even an inflection point in the theatrical cut with their relationship? Or is it just, they don't, again, like, I appreciate the fuller picture of the movie, but some point is to be made that, like, we just go into it knowing that he's a bad, dismissive boyfriend. Like, all right.
I think it comes when he basically lets everybody know that he's going to steal Josh's idea.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, I would agree.
You know, it's like, you are an asshole, not just to me, like, you are an asshole. Like, you had no idea what you were doing. Everybody, and I think that's the other stuff was cut out of extended scenes was more of him, like, because Josh says at one point, you should be doing your work. And he's like, what work are you talking about? Like, your prospectus, your thesis.
Right.
Figure it out. He doesn't know what he's doing yet until he gets there and decides to do it on that, which Josh is obviously already doing. And, you know, so that whole thing.
I mean, Christian's written as a really terrible guy, both to his girlfriend and to, like, I would even go as far as to say, because we've already mentioned it about, like, it doesn't seem like their friendship, like their relationship between Danny and Christian is real. I'm not sure that they even seem like they're real friends. Like Josh and Christian, it barely feels like they're even friends.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a believable friendship. Like,
no.
And then that moment where Christian again outs himself as such a piece of garbage, where he's like, well, I just want you to know we have nothing to do with him. We don't consider him a friend or a collaborator. Two scenes earlier, he's like, we could be collaborators on this and share information. And then 2 scenes later, he's like, we have nothing to do with this guy and have forsaken him completely. Like, wait, what the fuck? Like, Christian, again, he's written with such a broad stroke that it's like, I don't know anyone like this personally that takes the wrong, it's like he takes the wrong action when given every opportunity to do the right thing. And I don't personally know anybody like that anymore. But I'm not saying that I did or didn't, but, like, that is hard to be around. Just as hard as Florence Pugh's constantly apologetic is hard to be around.
Yeah.
But again, that incendiary combination is what makes this movie work, is because it's believably incendiary to the point where you're like, okay, I can get to the point the movie wants me to get to, where she kills her boyfriend.
But I'm going to say lets him be killed. I'm not going to say she kills him.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, yeah.
She lets him be killed. I don't know that she has all that much choice. But anyway,
No, she's drugged out of her mind, and so is he.
I've known plenty of people like that, and they're the worst. And I don't even think it's really a broad stroke, his character. I think it's just, this is a white dude. He's just a white guy. He's an American white guy.
Toxically masculine as well.
He is entitled to whatever he wants. And it's funny that he's screwing over a black guy.
Yes. God, I mean, yeah.
You know?
And man,
I don't know if that's intentional, but that's who he's screwing over.
Well, and there is, I would say there is racist undertones to the movie. I mean, the cult is clearly very all white. There are moments towards the end of the movie where the outfits that they're wearing are very Klan adjacent. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I mean, if you see the movie, you know what we're talking about. At the end of the movie, they're wearing outfits when they're lighting the barn on fire, when they're drugging Christian.
White
they
robes.
Look like, with like, again, Klan-ish headdresses. Like to your point, Christian is fucking over a black guy. And don't you love the fact that his name is Christian? Boy, that's not on the nose. It's not as on the nose as it could be. I think by the end of the movie, the journey that we go on with Danny, that moment at the end where she is like watching the barn burn and watching her former life go up in flames, and it's willing. I mean, again, like willingly, but again, she's been convinced by the cult. I mean, again, like it's willingly, but also she's been gaslit the entire movie. Like,
well, and she's drugged, like you say, as well, and
vulnerable to begin with, and then susceptible through the power of constantly being drugged. I mean, again, I don't think everybody in the cult is constantly drugging each other, but I think she has to get to the point where she is drugged to be able to do all the things that she, like you said, allows to happen. Because whether or not she wants Christian to die is kind of unimportant. There's nothing that, like, that's it. Too bad. Like, I mean, that's how this is ending. Like, it has been foretold by the paintings on the walls in the barn, like, that this is how this movie is going to end. It's fated that this guy goes into the bear suit, which the imagery of that is great. And Jack Rayner looking around in the bear suit is great imagery. I mean, this movie, similarly to something like Tusk, like, you have an actor who is towards the end of this movie, like, Jack Rayner does very little with dialogue and a lot of emoting in the face, similarly to Florence Pugh. Like, I would actually say, like, Jack Rayner might be underrated in terms of his performance in this movie because of how off-putting he is. It's like Sharon Stone in Casino. It's like the intent is to be off-putting, but towards the end of the movie, his, like, facial expressions are just, they're fantastic because he's getting so much out of the being drugged and, being whacked out of your mind.
That's all he can do is emote.
Yeah, emote. Yeah. I love it. Yeah, this is, again, I was worried that I was going to have a hard time being impartial about this movie because of how much I enjoy it and how quickly it's become a movie that I really enjoy. And again, like, I only have seen it in the last year. It's a movie that I would say is one of my favorite movies, and it's only been out for 6 years. Like, that's, most movies that I would consider to be my favorite movies are movies that have been out for a long time, like Goodfellas, which has been out, almost as long as I've been alive. Like, that's a movie that is not a movie that doesn't have a history. It has a history. It's been referenced in things. I'm not saying Midsommar hasn't, but, like, Goodfellas has cemented itself as part of pop culture. I think Midsommar has as well, rather quickly, at least in terms of the horror community. I don't think outside of the horror community, I mean, like, again, like, I'm not saying it is or isn't. I think people have probably seen the imagery of Florence Pugh with the flowers. Maybe they don't know what the movie's about. I mean,
and her frowny face.
Yeah. The Florence Pugh frowny face is really, I mean, come on. She does
it a lot in this movie.
Yeah, we've talked about her character, but your thoughts on Florence Pugh? I mean, I love her as an actress, but I'm curious. What are your thoughts on Florence?
I like her in just about everything I've seen her in. And I think after this, I searched out, there's a one where she plays a wrestler.
Oh, yeah. Wrestling with My Family, where she plays Soraya. Oh, God, what the hell was her name in the WWE? Paige. Yeah, that was a movie that was produced by The Rock, I believe.
Yeah, it was enjoyable. I'm trying to think of what else, but I generally, the Marvel stuff, whatever. But I generally like her in what I see her in.
Don't forget Dune.
Yeah.
Or forget Dune if you'd like, and probably both of our cases.
He's not in it that much, but
no,
and doesn't have that much to do. But I was looking down at my notes. I was looking for something in particular, but then I got kind of pulled into something I wrote down where I believe it's shortly after they get there. They get there and then they trip out in the field before they get to walk through the sunshine butthole.
Right.
And everybody's greeted. And I'm pretty sure that Danny is the only one the guy says welcome home to.
Yes.
He says welcome to everybody else. And he says welcome home to her. And I'm like, okay. Something I did, I haven't seen this movie a ton, but I'm like, okay, yeah. All right.
Does she not look vaguely Swedish? She's literally, like blonde-haired, blue-eyed. By the end of the movie, she's literally blue-eyed. Her eye color changes at the end of the movie, like literally. But I don't know. There's a really good video on YouTube. It's 7 hours long. It is a video that explains, quote unquote, Midsommar. I think it more just talks about it doesn't explain it as much as more talks about the visual imagery that Ari Aster utilizes and where those inspirations come from. And then, like you've already alluded to, how he's planting that imagery in the movie to then pay it off later on. And if you want to sit and listen to something about Midsommar for 7 hours, it's pretty great. He has like a 4-hour video about Hereditary, also pretty great. It made me appreciate these movies a lot more, I think, at least for me, as someone who, again, and I know you agree with this, the use of imagery and iconography is kind of in film is not a lost art, but that's a subtlety thing that isn't done as much as it used to be. And that's a thing that I think about when I think of 70s filmmaking, where it's like you don't have to belabor the point. They expect that the audience is hip, man, or smart. A smart audience, as they would have been called, or, whatever the fuck they would have called them in the 70s. But now, again, it's like, even with something like, again, you brought up professional wrestling and Florence Pugh played a real professional wrestler. Professional wrestling has a lot of subtlety to it now that, I appreciate as someone who watches and appreciates things like this movie that actually has a level of subtlety, even though it's hyper realistic and hyper stylized. There is some subtlety as to what's going on. There is some intent to why Ari Aster is doing things. And again, the paying off and the planting of things is intentional. There aren't a lot of filmmakers who make big budget movies like this, I think, is probably the thing. It's like him and Robert Eggers and Mike Flanagan. They're the ones making these big budget studio horror movies that are more than just, again, not saying that there's anything wrong with something like Scream 2, but I'm not saying Scream 2 doesn't have moments of subtlety and all kinds of themes and stuff, but it doesn't have as much of what this movie is doing. And this movie is a lot. Intentionally, Ari Aster is bombarding you with shit constantly in this movie. He's doing camera tricks, he's doing all kinds of stuff. We didn't even talk about, there's a scene where the women are picking the flower backwards, and you are hearing the conversation of the people at the table for no reason other than because it's the commentary to hear about how they're being pig-headed Americans once again, about the women picking the flowers, and there's no reason for it other than once again reinforcing the pig-headed Americanness of them. Ari Aster's just making weird choices that are weird decisions that feel interesting and fresh, and I appreciate that. While it might not be, I forget what they were calling it, what was the term for horror there for a while,
elevated.
We don't even say that anymore, really. The term's kind of gone out of style, right?
Are you talking about when he says, "Why are they walking stupid"?
Yeah.
Somebody tell those women they're walking
stupid? Yeah. Why are we hearing them in the background clearly and loudly while we are watching them? That is a choice that Ari Aster is making solely to once again reinforce this guy is just a fucking asshole all the time. Even when something is happening that is like a ritualistic thing, he has to add his asshole commentary about what's going on. And Ari Aster makes the choice for us to hear it because, again, it's funny, but there's no reason for it. It's just a stylistic choice.
Yeah. Well, like the framing of Christian in the mirrors at the beginning of the film on 2 separate occasions. One, when they come back from the party and he's sitting across the other side of the room, but we see him in the mirror and she's standing there and larger than him. He's separate. They're obviously separated, blah, blah, blah. And then when she goes over to whoever's apartment that is, and they're all there, and he lets her in, and they're back in the mirror, but we see them. Josh is laying on the couch, and the other guy, Pele, I think, is sitting on the couch, and Will Poulter is sitting there too, and then they leave, but they stay on that shot of the mirror and Christian. And I'm thinking, is he going to be in mirrors for the rest of the movie? I mean, when do we need to do it that? But there really aren't any mirrors at the place that they get to. So
No.
I don't think there are any mirrors there, but
No.
that I think that sort of reinforces, like you said earlier, that does anybody really like him? Is he an outsider even in this group of friends? Because he's not as serious about his studies. And I don't know if Will Poulter is doing the same thing or not. I think he's just their pal that's tagging along.
Yeah,
to get Swedish pussy or something, but
he's the personality hire. He's the fun one, right? He's the fun guy of the group, is what it feels like. Like he's the fun friend, but he's like the dickhead friend. There's that scene that Florence Pugh has that dream where Will Poulter is like in the back of the car going, making like this weird face, and you're like, we all have. This is that friend. Like he is just that like interminable dickhead constantly. But he's fun. But again, he's one of those guys that maybe he's fun to have around. He's fun to have a drink with, because he probably tells a fun story. People like Bert Kreischer for a reason. You know what I mean? Like there's a level of he's one of those. He's an asshole, but he's our asshole. Like Christian's not a fun asshole. He's just a fucking asshole. And it's hard to believe anyone is friends with.
There is a mirror in the outhouse. Where she sees her sister.
Oh yeah, that's right.
One of the other times that she sees the visage of her sister, she walks in there, turns on the light. But I don't think there's any mirrors in their compound.
No. Well, nobody's being very reflective on their nature throughout any of the end of the.
How do you do your hair though? Those girls have fancy hair.
Everybody is so immaculately good looking all the time, aren't they? Man, not an ugly person in sight in any of these.
Even Ruben. Even Ruben's cute.
Yeah, even he's kind of cute and like got stung by a bee way. I don't know if this is a bit of a stretch, but the imagery, the cult imagery. There's a scene right before Josh dies where he's in his bed, and I can't necessarily take credit for this one. However, I do think I would go as far as to say it does seem intentional. It's mentioned in that video I was talking about, where we see a shot of Josh's shoes that seem eerily reminiscent of the Hail Bop, those yo-yos.
Oh.
Heaven's Gate. Because again, the whole thing that I always thought about with them is their shoes sticking out of the end of the blankets. Those like Nikes, those Nike ones that they don't even sell anymore. They're super expensive. Like that shot felt so intentional. He talks about it in this YouTube video. And every time I watch the movie now, I'm like, no, that is totally intentional because he hangs on it for too long for it to not be.
Well, see, this is how I took that. Not even close to that. It's telling us he's going to get up out of bed, which he does immediately after that and goes.
That's true.
Because he's trying to one up Christian now at this point. So I not that it isn't a nod to that at all. I mean, it totally could be different brand of shoes. It's a different brand of shoes for one thing, but I simply took it as, he's letting us know he's going to get up and walk outside, which he does like immediately after that.
I guess
and meets his fate.
And I guess my thing is when you have a director like Ari Aster who does do a literal Michael Myers head tilt reference in his movie, I don't know. Is it? And again, maybe, and you mentioned like in my old age, I don't want to watch bad movies. Like, and you know what, brother, I get it. Because here's the thing that I will say about as in my old age, as I turn the old age of 35 this year, which is not old at all any more than you're old, because we sit here and talk about movies on the internet, which old people don't fucking do, by the way. I wonder more and more if there are movies that I watch where I am like those fucking people in Room 237, where I'm looking for things that aren't there. And this feels like one of those movies for me, because I feel like there is, again, if you have a moment in your movie where you have a Will Poulter skin suit head tilt like Michael Myers in your movie, it like, I don't know, I feel like with an intent like that, almost anything could feel intentional in a movie like that. And I don't want to compare Ari Aster to Stanley Kubrick because that's not something that anybody should be doing, but directors making movies with intent is something I appreciate, because even if I don't like Tarantino, he controls the entire fucking process and does exactly what he wants, gets exactly how he wants it on the screen. And Ari Aster and Robert Eggers and so many of these directors are doing the exact same thing. And there's something to be said for that, which I appreciate, a meticulousness with which a movie is put together.
I think it's just another one of those on the nose examples. I think it's a gag. I don't know if it was my wife or my daughter. I mean, I know my daughter would pick it up, but I think it was my wife, who's not like super horror movie person at all. She was like, "Oh, that looks like the Halloween mask." And I'm like, "Yeah, it fucking does."
But then he does the tilt.
Yeah, and and it's like, yeah, it's a goof. And I don't think, the Room 237 stuff, the whole, it's like Stanley Kubrick is this alien from outer space who is just such a genius that he put in every grain of sand in the scenes at the opening of 2000. Like, come on,
Calumet baking soda, baby. Come on. I know the way that those cans were turned. I have a Calumet baking soda can on one of these shelves in here somewhere.
You know how many people are involved in the making of a movie that the director generally okays, but you've got costume designers doing this stuff. You've got set designers doing these things. You have,
but the director does end up making the last call.
Yeah, but the director doesn't fucking walk. Right. The director does not walk around a set and turn, I mean, come on.
They said they saw him doing it, though.
Sure.
That's why I said, like, I don't want to, like, in my old age, am I becoming that guy who's looking for shit where things aren't? Like, I don't want to be like, Ari Aster's Midsommar is full of all kinds of wild imagery from, again, from the Heaven's Gate, suicides to Michael Myers to, all kind. I mean, again, like, there's all kinds, Swedish. I mean, again, this is not a stretch, but, John Bowers, that's the Swedish imagery of the girl with the bear. Like, again, there's a lot of all kinds of really overt imagery that the movie goes with. And it's like, am I digging for things, or is the movie being obvious? And I think, to your point, it's like, I don't think it kind of fucking matters, because the movie is being obvious, because like you said,
there's a lot of obvious stuff in it.
Yeah. It's being obvious. Very obvious.
And I think that's the humor. I don't know. And regardless of what the shoes symbolize, I don't think it really points at him being some kind of Kubrickian genius, for one thing. You could absolutely take it like as a nod to that whole thing. For some reason, though, I just see it as a more simple, like, foreshadowing of what happens 2 seconds later.
Right. And I like I said, I totally agree with you at the same time.
Because they're supposed to be going to bed, right. and he's up to shenanigans, and it's not even really necessary to show it. So that kind of goes to the point of, like, death cult
imagery,
symbology. Right?
I mean, again, like, what's the most iconic death? I mean, again, in this movie, we do even have people sharing communal tea. Again, which,
right.
What is that? I know what that makes me think of when I see a bunch of people drinking stuff. Like I said, I don't know, but I think there is something to be said for a director who has intent with what he's doing. And I think Ari Aster has intent either way. I mean, whether it be that is the point.
I'm not saying this stuff is accidental. I'm not saying this stuff is accidental, but I'm also not saying that I don't think, at least in Kubrick's case, that, the Apollo 13 jacket or wherever the fuck Danny wears in the movie is telling us that he faked the moon landing. That I don't buy.
Right.
I'm sorry. I think that's a crock of shit.
Well, and that's and that's the other thing. I think there's also obviously a line to which we can say, like, that the subtext of the movie, or the actual, like, are we just swimming and looking? So the Apollo 13 thing. I mean, there's not. I'm not gonna float anything like that with this movie, because I don't think there's anything like that in this movie. Because I think anything that this movie does is way more overt than that. I mean, again, they essentially have these characters in white Klan outfits the entire movie. White people in white outfits, killing people that don't look like them. Okay, like, it's pretty fucking overt as far as I'm concerned.
So I noticed on this viewing, maybe I noticed it before but didn't think of it. Simon, when they stumble on him and he's all hung up and flayed open like that, which we see an image of, believe at some point in the film, and his lungs are on the outside of his body.
Yes.
And they're still pumping.
Yes.
So I don't know if they're manipulating him, or if he's actually still alive and breathing.
Or is
that's
Christian
pretty horrible.
hallucinating?
Oh, well, yeah.
That's what I mean, that's again, like, the last act of this movie is really hard to judge what the hell's actually going on because Christian and Danny are both drugged out of their minds.
That's true.
Like,
yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
beyond belief. Like, one of my favorite gags in the movie is the closing of the fucking eyes with the fingers. That is like, oh my God, like what? Or the clapping in the face to be like,
Yeah.
I guess he's ready to be further drugged. Like again, so much of what happened. To compare what I would compare this movie to, and again, this is probably not a comparison that you may have a lot of context with because I don't know. We've never talked about video games, but Japanese style action games have no tutorial. They just drop you into the game and say, just go fucking do and see what happens. This movie doesn't really explain a lot. It shows you what's going to do, but it doesn't explain a lot until right at the end. And then it explains what's happening. But again, like you've already alluded to several times, like it doesn't need to explain it. Ari Aster does such a good job of showing it that it's like the complaint that we always hear is like show don't tell. And Ari Aster is showing, motherfucker. Right. He's showing. And I love it. I'm here for it. Like I'm okay with it.
And in it, like I've said, in a very on the nose way though. I mean, that whole the one for me that really makes me laugh is the just going down the love potion
panel
thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's explained right there. And like you said, how does he notice that his drink is the only pink one on the table? And then he eats a pubic hair in his pie. And it's not that they would have any context, although they do walk by that thing.
Yeah.
Or
they would have at some point.
Yeah, and study it, and like he's right. This is your thesis now. Go study that mural about the chick cutting off her pubic hair and then bleeding into your glass.
But maybe I guess the point is like these guys are also terrible at what they're terrible people, and they're also terrible anthropologists because they wander into they wander into what they wander into and see what is happening to them before they're just not paying attention. It's
right.
It's obvious to everybody but them what's happening.
And Josh apparently knows what the Atastupa is, but is shocked, horribly shocked when it actually happens. So did he really know what it is?
Well, and doesn't inform his friends, doesn't warn them that they're about to see someone throw themselves to their death. Yeah, I don't think he's a very good anthropologist because I don't think he knows what it is.
And he's not a very good friend either.
Yeah. Because if he would have told them.
Are good friends to each other.
No, I mean, again, like that's the thing about the movie is like it makes the case that like it doesn't make the case that they deserve to die, but the movie makes the case that like, boy, they were really shitty people when they were alive. So
it's the same. You've mentioned the Wicker Man a couple of times, and that arrogance that. And they're of the same culture in a way, though. I mean, he's just going to a different British island, right?
Right.
But he's, he thinks he's going there for one reason. I mean, we find out at the end that he was basically brought there because he's a virgin, and that's who they sacrifice. And all this whole time, you think he's looking for this girl, et cetera, that's going to be something that's either happened to her or is going to happen to her. And that's like, no, dummy, you're the sacrifice. And it's the same thing with these arrogant assholes, by 4 or however many they end up killing. Well, two British people and then 3 of them. Yeah, there's 3 guys, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like,
well, then there are their own 2 people on top of everything else.
And why would you suspect that, I guess, going in there as an arrogant American, but also like at least Josh has some understanding of their culture, but I'm, obviously this isn't going to get out to the wide world or people would be up in arms.
Right.
But he seems to know a little bit about some of the stuff. So
well, it seems more like they're co-opting
the murals.
You're right. It seems, and the Horga seems more like they're co-opting other things. I mean, obviously they're a creation. I mean, the Horga themselves were created by the 2 producers of the film, but before the movie. That's a thing that existed prior to the movie, and so it's integrated into the movie. So that's, I mean, the world feels very lived in, and like. It feels like, the world feels fully realized of the people there in this place. And to your point, like, it's isolated. They're not being honest. They're doing weird things. But again, these arrogant Americans are like not taken aback by any of it. The way the British are. The Americans are not taken aback by it. They're just like sitting there kind of going, that's kind of weird. But none of them leave, not willingly anyways. They're taken out one by one. They're killed. That's how they leave. They don't leave. They don't even try to leave, which I'm not sure what that says about Americans broadly, that the Americans, after watching two people kill themselves and then another attempted murder, and then two people disappear, that they're not like, what the fuck is going on? They're just oblivious on top of everything else, which I think, to your comment about this movie being very like darkly comedic, like, I think for me, that's one of the funniest things about this movie is they're so fucking oblivious. They're like, to your point about them seeing the mural, there's no way somebody could be that fucking oblivious. But yet they are, which I think works in the benefit of like, these are just like shitty morons who are so shitty they can't even realize that they've walked into a roach trap that they are not getting out of, all of them. You're muted, by the way.
Danny does want to leave
right
at some point, and Christian says no, and I would be like, fine, I'm going.
Adios.
She doesn't get the opportunity to do that, but she does finally become unnerved enough to be like, yeah, something's not right here. I want out, and doesn't get to.
No.
And it would be interesting. I hate the idea of it, but it would be interesting to see what her life is like later.
Well, I'm assuming the scene where we watch the Attestupen is essentially us seeing what will be her in the future. I mean, that actress they look similar to one another. Like, you can see them look at one another, lock eyes, and it's like, unless something changes, this will be you at 72.
But I mean,
and Pele will be following you.
That's a long ways off, but that's a long ways off for her. So
true.
What is she going to be like when the next group of sacrificial lambs come in? That's what I want to see.
Yeah, that would be interesting. And who of the people that are there now were the most recent people that were brought in that have joined, if that's a thing? Because that's the question that's never answered, right? Like, nobody here is like, there's not the scene in this movie, which I think is smart. There's not like a bait and switch scene where one of them is like, all right, I'm going to help you leave. And then it turns out that they were like, it was bullshit all along, and they were, I think the menu has that scene where it's like, oh, the Coast Guard showing up to help. And it's like, no, the Coast Guard is in on it. Like, there's not one of those scenes where one of the cult members is like a Jonestown where it's like, we're sending letters for help. There's none of that. Like, there's none of that. There's no moment for her in that. So,
or
we don't
they
even
were,
see that.
I think what you're getting at is like, where is the last her that showed up and stayed?
Right. Yeah.
And they would be like, but wouldn't they wouldn't be like trying to get out the whole time. They would just be like,
right.
They're
not trying to contact her to say, get me out of here is my point. Like, there's none of that. So I don't know if there is that person.
That could have been interesting though. Like, that person has a British accent or something else, or, an obvious like Asian person. It's like, whoa, what's that Asian person doing here?
Well,
I came with Ingmar 2 years ago. Oh,
yeah.
And I decided to stay. And then, late at night, they scramble over to the dorm and like, get the fuck out of here when you can. Because then that sort of becomes like your basic horror movie type thing where then they're trying to escape and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But there's got to be outside. She can't be the first outside person that has joined their group. Although they do not even really imply, but it's almost explicit that people are brought in to mate with them.
And then are killed, I assume. They don't say, but like they
don't say. So
kind of the implication.
Yeah, that is the implication that that's the sole purpose for some people to be there. Like, I mean, when they're talking about Reuben, that's what they talk about. Well, there's inbreeding, but there's also, outside fornicators.
Right.
I mean, that's what Christian is. So
yeah, and that's one of those things where, like, I guess I'm glad they don't explain it. It doesn't, it doesn't need to be explained. They hint at things that are awful. They hint at like, forced incest essentially is,
right, to get their oracles and
it's like the things that they hint at are pretty terrible. It's the movie does a lot without showing people being eviscerated and torn apart. and gored and mutilated. Again, we don't even see Christian get his legs cut off. We see him go down with the wire to pull it up on his knees, and it cuts away to him in the bear suit looking around. I mean, the movie almost sometimes it takes the opportunity to avoid the thing that you think we're going to see. You think, oh, he's going to get his legs cut off. No, we don't see that. You know, like we don't see some of those things. We see the people jump to their deaths, but we don't see Connie get drowned. We don't see Simon get turned inside out. You know, Josh, we just see his legs sticking out of the ground. Like the movie has no training wheels. It is a movie where it is expecting you to watch the movie and actually watch what the director is showing you, even if it is super goddamn obvious. If you are paying attention to what the movie is showing you, it will reward you as you watch it. Because like you've said, you've watched it several times and seen several different things while watching it. And I think in a lot of ways, that's a sign of a movie that has some longevity to it, is that you can watch it several times and actually get some value out of it other than just, you know, like, oh, it's entertaining. I'm seeing something else this time, or I'm seeing a different performance, or something about the production even, you know, because the production of this movie, I haven't even talked about it, is like beyond impressive on top of everything else. All these are practical fucking sets. That building, for the most part, I believe there might be some CGI. But that building that they're in is like impressive. Like all of the sets and everything, like the set dressing is impressive. You know, the movie itself is technically impressive on top of being an entertaining movie. And then there's some subtext and other things possibly going on in the movie. So it's like there's a lot going on with this movie in a lot of a positive way.
The show don't tell comes back. I mean, that's another great part of this, is where you're catching things because it isn't overtly explained for dumb movie audiences, like a lot of movies, where let's explain what happened to Simon. It's like, well, it was in an image earlier. It's part of the ritual. They're going to grow stuff out of him, or I don't know what.
And we hear Connie scream off screen.
Yeah. Why is she drowned? What's the drowning? I don't need everything explained to me. So that's why you're able to maybe see. I always forget that they cut his legs off because they don't show it.
Right.
So every time that comes up and then they cut away, I kind of immediately forget about it. And then I think, how did they get him in that fucking bear?
He didn't shrink. Yeah. He did not shrink at any point. Yeah.
And possibly cut his arms off too.
Right. Yeah. He's just like a fucking torso without, you know.
I mean, there are other torsos in there, right?
Yeah.
With limbs sticking out of them. So
yeah, that's very true.
And Will Poulter is just his skin stuffed with straw.
Yeah. It's again, like the movie
I think the one guy is still wearing his skin.
Yeah.
I think one of the guys is still wearing his skin.
Well, and one of the things that I love about the end of the movie, again, talking about kind of seeing all these corpses being paraded into the building, they go, here's this honey or sap of the yowie tree or whatever the fuck. You won't feel any pain.
Yew tree.
Yeah. You won't feel any pain though. Seemed to be that seemed to be a fucking, so that was, to quote Tyler the Creator, so that was a fucking lie. Like, I love that though, because again, like, I think it goes back to the subtext of the movie, which is like, this cult is full of shit. Like, They are a cult founded on nonsense, which is, again, I think, more or less the point of the movie, which is cults are inherently founded on nonsense. Like, to go back to Heaven's Gate, they thought that an alien spaceship was on the back of the Hale-Bopp comet and they were going to get taken away by it. That is inherently fucking insane. You know, Jonestown, they believed that, you know, Jim Jones could do no wrong. And I mean, there were people trying to leave Jonestown, but a lot of people bought into his message and killed themselves because he told them to. That's fucking wild. And these people feel compelled to throw themselves off of a cliff at the age of 72 because they don't want to get old and die in pain. I mean, that almost makes a lot more sense than the other things you mentioned, you know, like why would you want to live that way? I mean, think about it. The life expectancy and living to be 100 years old. Why though? Why would you? I mean, at 30, you might think, well, I want to live as long as I possibly can. And it's like, well, yeah, unless you're riddled with cancer and in enormous pain, or you have Alzheimer's and you don't even realize anything that's going on. You know, there's all these things. Right. All the qualifiers we don't know about.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense than we're going to meet the aliens up in when they pass by Earth in their spaceship and go to heaven. And those people probably believed it till the second they died.
Right. Like, oh shit, the aliens are in fact not coming.
Well, I'm not saying they had a change of heart. I'm saying they believed it up until they died.
No, yeah.
So good for them. They think that happened.
Right. They think the aliens took them.
Yeah. How would they know otherwise? They're not going to know their plan failed.
Right. Exactly.
They're dead.
Yeah. There's there's very little failure on the other side of that for the people involved. They don't. Yeah. The thing that I think for me, I ultimately walk away from this movie with is it took a while for me to come around on some of these horror directors from the mid-teens, like Robert Eggers and Ari Aster, because you mentioned Beau is Afraid, which is Ari Aster's most recent film. I think he's working on something else right now. Ari Aster and Robert Eggers and Mike Flanagan, it's taken me a while to come around on them, and I have come around on them quite hard because like I've said, Midsommar I consider it to be one of my favorite movies, and I've watched it a lot. I'm glad that I have, but some of it took a little bit of teeth gritting because I tend to find when things are overhyped, they do not live up to the hype. But in my mind, Hereditary and Midsommar live up to the hype surrounding them being, I think, worthy entries and worthy examples of some of the finest examples of that subgenre of horror, be it exorcism / possession horror for Hereditary, and for Midsommar, folk horror. And Beau is Afraid is its own fucking bag of tricks and its own weird thing. But Midsommar, I think, is a really good folk horror movie. Like, on top of it being a lot of other things. You could
put Hereditary in there too, because it's revolves around a cult as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, a lot of and the cult stuff in that movie is so low key compared to the cult stuff in this movie. Because the cult stuff in Hereditary, if the internet explainer videos are to be believed, the entire town is in on it. Like the people at the party chopping the nuts are in on it. Like, everybody is in on the cult, like, literally. And it's that's a part of that movie that kind of gets underappreciated because of how obvious the cult stuff is in this movie and how obvious the demonic possession stuff is in Hereditary. But there is a cult aspect. You're totally right to that. Here it's just amplified to the nth degree.
I mean, the nuts thing is a perfect example of I'm going, who the fuck? For one thing, you can't make a cake that fast. I'm sorry. Cinema sins on Hereditary, but you don't make a cake or brownies or whatever that fast. It's got to bake, it's got to cool, then you frost it, and it's they're chopping the nuts, and then 10 minutes later she's eating a fucking piece of cake. But I think that in that case, it's this is the inevitability though of this story. This has to happen. Now, it could have just been she picked up a fucking candy bar that was left there by the same girls. If this is all a conspiracy, every single candy bar in the little jar on the table has a nut in it.
Right.
It's all, it's Hershey's with almonds. It's Almond Joy. There's Snicker. There's tons of, they make such a point of it throughout the movie. Does that candy have nuts in it? It's why would she pick a fucking candy bar that has nuts in it if she knows she has a peanut allergy? Right. So let's make a big point about this, and then show the first scene at that party is a girl furiously chopping nuts, that's not how you chop nuts either, so it's obviously a plant for what's going to happen. This is an inevitable event. This girl is going to die this way. Right. He gets stoned, the whole, the machinations.
Well, and the pole is marked with the mark of the cult. It's all Midsommar and Hereditary are movies that exist, and the stories are almost solely Midsommar exists solely for Danny's benefit. The entire movie is being done for one person to join this fucking cult. It's bona fide insane. Hereditary is being done so one guy can be possessed. One adult male child can be possessed by essentially a lord of the underworld. Yeah.
All for
one person's benefit. It's like
That's the joke.
Yeah.
It's everything grandma did was for this.
Yeah.
And apparently it worked. So there you go.
And all the cult members in Midsommar were all drinking the tea and drugging everybody just so Danny would join them. Literally, by the end of the movie, it's like this is all being done for Danny's benefit, so that she, at the end of the movie, when the credits hit and we cut to black, she has been broken and she is now part of the cult, and that is it. And that's it.
Well, and apparently she's happy. She's smiling finally.
Yeah.
So
inevitable, like you said, the inevitability of Midsommar is just like the inevitability of Hereditary. It's like there was only one way this movie was ever going to end, and Ari Aster makes it clear from the moment you sit down in the movie where we're going. He takes it in some very interesting directions, obviously, but yeah, I think whatever his next film is. But I mean, I have seen Beau is Afraid. It will take several rewatches because it is a dense movie, kind of like this is a dense movie, and I think it is more.
It's kind of become a joke in our house. We need to finish Beau is Afraid. My daughter's like, "Go ahead."
It's very esoteric as well.
We got about halfway through. I was enjoying it. It's very anxiety inducing. I mean, that's the whole point. It is an anxiety nightmare for this character. So everything that happens is like, oh my God, get me out of here. And you're right along there feeling the exact same thing. I'm not sure why he has gigantic testicles, but I haven't gotten that far in the movie yet. So
that may have been a choice by Joaquin Phoenix alone. Who knows?
I was going to ask you if you've seen his short film, The Strange Thing About the Johnsons.
I have. Wow. Boy. You've seen it, I'm assuming, by your fucking laugh. Yeah.
Well, that was sort of the thing that came out when Hereditary came out. Well, you guys really need to watch The Strange Thing About the Johnsons. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to track this down.
Yeah. Did you regret that one?
Holy uncomfortable watch.
Yeah. Familial incest, not a thing I really want to watch. Yeah. And that movie, I mean, again, like, I think Ari Aster knows how to do unsettling and uncomfortable better than anyone. I mean, again, that was one of my early things early on in this episode, is talking about the unsettling nature of the movie. And I mean, it's no surprise that it's Ari Aster making Midsommar, because he, with Hereditary, whether or not the entire town is in on it, you're creeped out the entire fucking time, and everything feels weird and unsettling. And, the moment you leave the room, the talking stops, like it's that. And, the people are watching. And then, when you walk in, everybody starts talking. Like, is that what's going on? And in Midsommar and Hereditary, yes, in fact, that is what's fucking happening. Like, and it's that level of like unsettling and, like you said with Beau is Afraid, anxiety inducing, that I think that's probably why I resonate with this movie so much. I really enjoy this movie, and I like what this movie has to say about relationships as well. I think that this movie has some interesting things to say about relationships and like the culpability of people in relationships. Because to your point, this time when I watched it, because I have not watched it since I got divorced, it's interesting to watch this movie post a kind of traumatic event similar to the traumatic event that's being drug out in this movie. Essentially, this is a breakup movie for the ages in a lot of ways. It hits different as someone who's gone through that traumatic kind of event. And so I like I said, I really appreciate this movie, and I enjoy this movie, and the imagery of this movie. I mean, again, it's a lot of bright colors, which for a horror movie, like this is the kind of only thing like this in a lot of ways. Like folk horror, there are folk horror movies that do operate in the daylight. Wicker Man is one of them, but there is not a whole lot of movies like this one. It's all in daylight all the time, and it's and half of the movie is just like kind of a fucking hallucination and a trip fest. Like I don't know, It's a unique movie, and I think it also, we didn't talk about the A24 of it all, but man, talk about kind of cementing A24 as a horror powerhouse, because this is right up there with some of those other movies that we've mentioned as like really making A24 the brand that they are now, and kind of the, now, the A24 look, kind of, this is part of what established that in a lot of ways, really. So
I think Hereditary established that, to be honest with you.
That's fair.
That was one of their first, we hear about box office and all that stuff now, but that was one of the earlier ones that kind of really broke through. I mean, I was able to see it in my hometown, which is not a big movie place.
Same.
I don't know how many A24 movies had played here prior to that, to be honest with you.
Did Tusk play in your town? Because
yes, it did.
Tusk was an A24 movie. Tusk was, in fact, an even earlier A24 movie.
Surprisingly enough.
Yeah.
And I think that was just the strength of Kevin Smith, whatever strength he had at that point.
But think about the visuals of Tusk and the kind of the look of that movie. It, even if we say even if we don't like the movie, because we have varying opinions, you can go listen to our episode on it. The A24 look is there with that movie. It totally that house that they're in, the color palette that's used, it's very it's just like this. This movie has a very distinct look and unique color palette to it that you said. Hereditary is obviously the big one, but I think Hereditary started it, and then something like Midsommar showed that it doesn't have to be dark and brown and beige. A24 movies can also be wildly colorful, but also completely and supremely unsettling, because flowers that are breathing is just, again, undulating flowers and stuff like that. It's you wouldn't think that's creepy, but this and Annihilation are the usage of beautiful, horrifying imagery is, again, I don't know, certain directors are able to do it, and this is one of them. So, anything else? We can talk for 2 hours. I mean, I could keep going. I know you've got notes.
I mean, it's all kind of minor stuff. I'm curious about Pele's parents burning in a fire when he's a kid. It's well, is that part of the thing, or was he? I mean, he seems like he's been there forever, but was that why he's there? Or?
Part of the thing.
He doesn't make it sound like a natural event, but I mean, look where he is.
Yeah, he's a good liar too. The guy is
a good liar.
Yeah, the guy's a known liar. Yeah. I like the idea of poor Florence Pugh being fed a whole fish tail first and being expected to eat it. I love that scene. There are some weird scenes in this movie that are just funny. I mean, again, Jack Rayner in a bear suit. Him looking around and that weird reaction that he gives is funny. There is a lot of comedic unintentional, or I mean, again, not unintentional, but you wouldn't think it would be in a horror movie. You'd be having these kind of pretty broadly physically comedic moments, but I mean, again, I think this movie has a fair amount of them in the third act. I just love everything that Jack Rayner does with his face, where he's just pouting and looking around, and his eyes are kind of going big and small, and I think
there's a lot of intentional humor. I think that's some of the stuff that, and again, in Hereditary as well. I think that's one of the things that sort of gets missed with his film.
Well, isn't that the joke? The girl goes to Sweden and joins the death cult and breaks up with her boyfriend and offers him up as a sacrifice to join the death cult. But where's the punchline there, The grandma offers up her family to a demon for wealth and riches, but dies in the process, I guess, going to hell in the process. What's the punchline there? I don't know, but it's a pretty dark joke. Oh, Ari Aster's movies are pretty funny. They're darkly funny. I mean, look, I know that we talked about this on the Tusk episode, but I find the ending of Tusk to be hilarious. It's super fucked up, but it's funny. And I think Kevin Smith's intent with Tusk was to make a movie where by the end of it, you're supposed to laugh at how fucking absurd the movie is. And Midsommar and Hereditary and, The Lighthouse, the absurdity of the scenario that these characters are in, the comedy that can come from that. I mean, Ari Aster and Robert Eggers and these other directors, they don't pass up the opportunity to take those little small moments and inject them into the movie, because they end up being that Florence Pugh line of what's happening. Now what's happening is oh my God, yep, we're all you, Florence Pugh. Because at this point, how much worse can this fucking get? We've watched people kill themselves, and what are we gonna turn to now? Cannibalism? Her exasperation in that scene is well warranted, but it's again a funny moment in an otherwise kind of unsettling and horrifying movie. So
yeah, I find a lot of it very funny, whether it's intended or not. There's, to me, a lot of humor in this film.
Yeah, I agree. So final thoughts on Midsommar, Mark?
The first time I saw it, when I went and saw it in the theater, I kind of walked out yeah, all right. And then I watched it with my kid, and I always seem to get a little bit more out of something when that happens. Either she explains something that I missed, or it's just kind of get her positive vibe and think, oh, okay, yeah. And liked it more that second time. And on this third time, being the longer version, it was interesting to note the pace of the film. And I'm like, man, this is a slow go, but I like what's happening in every scene. There's something going on with these asshole Americans. And with this, that versus this group. And I enjoy that play off of each other. And I know where this is all headed. I'm curious to see if I can spot the additional stuff, which most of it I didn't, except for the one long extended scene. And so that was fun to parse out. And she watched it with me again. So that was nice. And she was kind of like, again, able to sort of clue me in on like, well, that was new in this scene because I couldn't remember. Right. Like, oh, okay. That makes sense. And then I started looking at the deleted scene information on IMDb, and I'm like, oh, okay. I'm getting it. I get what this is going and why people think that he deserved it more if they watched the director's cut. Okay, I understand now. Yeah, I enjoy it a great deal. And it's so long, though. It's one of those probably every couple of year movies for me. This is not something that I will watch even annually just because of the length of it. But yeah, it's a heck of a lot of fun, and it's fun to catch more stuff every time you watch it. Movies like that are great. How about you?
Yeah, I was worried it was going to be hard for me to be objective about a movie I enjoy so much, and I think I've done as good of a job as I can. And I think sitting here and talking with you about it, I think it's allowed me to see things about the movie that I maybe didn't see because, again, the way I interpret the movie, which is something that I appreciate about, doing an episode like this about something that I inherently enjoy, is to hear what someone else thinks about something that I like and see, again, like good, bad is kind of unimportant, but more having a lively conversation. And I think, we had a lively conversation about one of my favorite movies that, like you said, it's a lot. The movie's a lot. It's 3 hours. Whenever I watch it, I watch the extended cut. And like I said, I've seen it a fair amount. I watched Long Legs a fair amount last year. This and Long Legs were what I watched a fair amount last year. They're two very drastically different films by drastically different filmmakers, but are two similar films in terms of the show don't tell. And the show don't tell of things, as you were talking about at the beginning of this, to bring it all, circular, like I'm in my old age, I want to watch movies that are actually trying and really trying to do something, because I don't have all the time in the world anymore to wait, like you said, to technically waste it on things that aren't great. And I'm not saying don't watch bad movies, far from it, but if I'm going to spend a lot of time and effort talking about something for 2 hours, it better be something that's spending 3 hours every second doing something, because again, that's this movie. There is very little, if any, wasted time in this movie. This movie does not waste a lot of time. Like you said, there's always something to look at, always something to see. The movie is doing something. It's actively trying to engage you as an audience member. If you look away from this movie, it has probably failed at what it is doing, because Ari Aster is really trying to create a mood and a vibe with this movie that I think, when it succeeds, which I think is most of the time, if not all of the time, for me at least, this is a unique horror movie that, again, in my mind, to call it a horror movie is like to compare it to things that are hard to compare it to, because I'm not saying it stands alone, but there's very few things that are like this. This is in and of itself its own thing. And the folk horror that it draws inspiration from paved the way for something like this to exist. And folk horror is something that I also personally enjoy. So I'm glad that we got to do a horror movie for my birthday month. And, we get to talk literally a day after your birthday. So, we're,
2 days, but who's counting?
2 days. Yeah. Well, yeah, right. Yeah. 2 days. Again, I will be curious when you finish Beau is Afraid. Maybe we could, talk about Beau is Afraid in the future.
I'm probably going to have to start it all over again at this point, because it's been so long since we watched the first half. Literally at least a year, if not longer, that we started the first half of it and didn't get through. And it wasn't we stopped it because we weren't enjoying it. It was like, okay, this is a really long movie and it's kind of late already. So
it's 179 minutes without the director's cut. There is.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's.
You mentioned Oz Perkins, and that's got to be another guy who gets thrown in that group with Ari Aster and Robert Eggers.
Totally, I agree. The fact that I kind of forgot about him bothers me
I was
a lot.
like, there's another name to add to this. He keeps saying those two, and I'm like, there's somebody else. Who is it? It's our boy Oz.
Yeah, because goddamn, dude, talk about a movie that I came around on hardcore. Blackcoat's Daughter.
Oh yeah, I mean, everybody that listens,
perfect movie.
Yeah, everybody that listens to my show knows that it took like 4 watches for me to finally, okay. And a lot of it was because it was show don't tell, and I missed some things that are pretty crucial to the story. And it's like, oh, well, duh.
Right.
Now I get it. And that's one of my favorites. It's still my favorite of his, actually.
I'd agree. I think for as much as I like Longlegs, I think Blackcoat's Daughter, man, can you imagine that being your first movie? What the fuck, man? Like, it's like a perfect movie. And it's not only is it a perfect movie, it has what I would consider to be like 2 of the great horror actresses of like that time period. Know as little about that movie as possible going into it, because that's another movie that benefits, like you said. I think it benefits from knowing very little about it, because by knowing very little about it, it requires you to watch it actively and several times.
And you do need to watch it actively, because that was my mistake the first time. I was like working and watching it or something, and I missed. I'm like, I got confused about the timeline, the whole thing, and it's Imagine not actively watching Midsommar, and it'd be like there's like shit you would miss. You'd be like, why is his glass redder than the others? Right. It's like the movie. Right. Well, that's what I said at the beginning. You just have to be paying attention. You don't even have to be paying attention like, taking notes and with a magnifying glass. You just have to be watching what's on screen, and it's all spelled out at the beginning and throughout. And that's why, even though it's almost 3 hours long and it is slow moving, but something unfolds every scene. You get new bits of information. You just have to be listening and watching actively.
It's a slow burn. It is a slow burn of a movie. Like, there are some moments in there that really, you get some of those big pops of things going on, but it's a slow burn. And again, at a 3 hour pace, it's a lot. Yeah. So let's take a break, and we'll play a preview and some ads for the next Kulturecast.
From Weirding Way Media, Cambridge and Washawn is a podcast about 2 guys' obsessions, passions, and hobbies. Those 2 guys are
Mark Bigley, host of Wake Up Heavy, Recollections of Horror,
and Ronald Zerigian, host of the Skelevator YouTube channel.
Each month we talk about the toys, comics, movies, books, TV shows, and other cultural phenomena that captured our imaginations and helped shape who we are today.
From Masters of the Universe to Saturday Night Live, Star Wars to Harry Houdini, The Muppets to The Elephant Man, Ronnie and Mark dive deep into the recesses of their minds to pull out treasured memories of things lost but never forgotten.
Join us on the first Tuesday of each month over at weirdingwaymedia.com or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Join me, Jamie Benning, on the Filmumentaries podcast, particularly if you enjoy stories like designer Nilo Rodis Jamiro convincing George Lucas to push him around to help gain the support of his crew on the ailing Howard the Duck.
Blam! The door opens, it's George. Everybody gasps. George makes a beeline to me. I'm literally back against the wall.
Or hear puppeteer Tim Rose's emotional story behind that iconic Admiral Akbar shot in Return of the Jedi.
I believe that war is something to be proud of, but not to celebrate.
Or how Star Wars editor Paul Hirsch tackled cutting so many successful films.
The thing that I learned from working with De Palma is that tension depends on a clock. You need to have the sense that time is running out.
Maybe Oscar-winning sound designer Mark Mangini's insightful chat about his work on Blade Runner 2049.
Not a single sound from the original Blade Runner in the new film. A great deal of inspiration.
That's the Filmumentaries podcast with me, Jamie Benning.
Hello, twisted humans. Do you find yourself wanting to know more about the latest murder, conspiracy, cult, or haunting?
Then this is the podcast for you.
In 1952, there was a record high of UFOs reported. 1,500 sightings.
There has been evidence of human sacrifice, devil worship, and it is haunted by more spirits than can be counted.
A family of 2 adults and 2 kids reportedly saw a giant flying thing with glowing red eyes.
And meanwhile, the family's nanny that helped Veronica to care for her and Lucian's children was found bludgeoned to death in the basement of their family home. I'm Alicia.
And I'm Sierra, and this is Twisted and Uncorked.
When I wrote Naked Lunch, reviewers just couldn't say enough. Disgusting, they whined, un-American trash. Well, now Hollywood has turned it into a movie and critics are chattering again.
The movie mind-blower of the year, Spellbinding, a stunningly surreal tour de force.
Thought you were finished with doing weird stuff.
I thought I was too, but I guess I'm not.
David Cronenberg's Naked Lunch, rated R.
So, because Mark Begley, I copped this from you 100%. Playing TV spots is such a better idea than playing trailer spots. So, on the next episode of the Kulturecast, we will be talking about a movie that I don't necessarily remember a whole lot, but it's one of my favorite books. So, I am hoping that the movie lives up to the expectations of the book. So, I'm kind of giving myself a little bit of a moment here. Maybe we'll see. We're going to be talking on the next episode about Naked Lunch, which, as Bart Simpson would say, I can say 2 things that are wrong with that title. And I will be joined by everybody's favorite moth daddy, Richard Haddam. He will be joining me to talk about...
It's not like the book.
No.
It is not like the book at all.
I know, which is, again, like,
It's genius, though, the way that was done.
Yeah, I'm excited to rewatch it. Like, I watched it so long ago that I don't remember it at all, essentially. And I read the book 2 years ago, and I have read the book 2 times since. And it is a book that I go back to when I am stoned frequently because it is fun to read while high. It really is. I think the best way to read Naked Lunch is stoned because it's wild. I mean, it's William S. Burroughs is one of my favorite authors. It's just wild.
There's another movie that does this, but I can't think of what it is. But it's basically, it's like a making of the book. Right. I mean, that's what the movie is. It's telling you the story of how the book was made, basically.
Theoretically.
I mean, not literally, because there aren't mugwumps in real life, but...
So says you, Mark Begley.
since it's not, it was, touted as impossible to film, David Cronenberg got around that and made a very interesting movie that is a companion piece to the book. There is another movie that did that same kind of thing where it's like, you're never going to be able to make a movie out of this book. Well, it's like, well, then let's do this. Let's do it this way. Of course, I can't think of it. But.
I'm excited. I mean, I knew that about it, that it's like, it's got Peter Weller as a, William S. Burroughs, I mean,
and he does
it's kind of like Rallis. It's kind of like Hunter S. Thompson with Fear and Loathing, right? Like, again, like, it's not the real person, but it's not the real person. Like, but again,
well, I'm going to say
it's not about real things. Like,
I'm going to say Peter Weller does a better William S. Burroughs than Johnny Depp does a Hunter S. Thompson. I'm going to argue that point right here. So,
I'm excited to see Peter Weller do William S. Burroughs because William S. Burroughs has one of the great voices. So I could listen to
very subtle. It's a very subtle, but he gets it in the right places.
Nice. Okay, I'm excited. And I know you have. I wanted to mention this because I know you like Burroughs. You like Burroughs, right? I mean,
I'm more of a Cronenberg fan in regards to this movie. I mean, I've read Naked Lunch and I've read Junkie, and seen a bunch of videos and things like that. It's more of the Cronenberg aspect of the movie to me.
Queer is very good, by the way. It almost made the cut this month for a movie to watch. It's very good. It is a good adaptation of the book and Daniel Craig.
I can't remember if I read that one.
I read Junkie. You read Junkie, right? I mean, it's pretty much Junkie. It's very similar. Queer was not finished. Queer is an unfinished manuscript. So it's very similar to Junkie. So, but yeah, and we'll be joined, like I said, by Moth Daddy. Richard had him on that episode where we'll continue to talk about William S. Burroughs, and maybe Richard will get to extol me with his love of Burroughs. I've never asked him, so we'll see. So until then, where can people find you and the things that you work on, Mark Begley?
You can find both of my shows, Cambridge and with Sean and Wake Up Heavy, over on weirdandwaymedia.com. What about you?
weirdandwaymedia.com. Same place for everything that I work on, other than the one show that I do with our friend and co-host of the Chevy Chase podcast, Mike White. We do a show over on Patreon called Rankin' on Bond with the aforementioned Richard Haddam, where we talk about James Bond once a month, and we are nearing the end of the Roger Moore tenure, which for many people means, now they're going to finally tune in because they're sick and tired of listening to us say the same thing for like 8 episodes. But that's okay. So on to Timothy Dalton, folks. But that's where you can find that, and maybe some other things coming soon, some bonus episodes of this show. Haven't done a bonus episode in a while. There is going to be a bonus episode this month. Last month we recorded one, but we ended up releasing it just as a normal episode. So like, rate, and review the show on iTunes, please, and thank you. That is the best way that you can engage with me and this show. Like, rate, and review all Weirding Way Media shows or any content that you engage with, whomever, however, because content creators, unless they're getting paid, aren't making any money doing any of this. Shocking, I know. We do this out of the goodness of our hearts and because we like to entertain ourselves with our friends while talking about movie. Begley, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a lot of fun. It's been way too long since we've done one of these.
Yeah.
And as always, we'll catch you in the next episode.